Welcome back, Trailblazers. Today we're unleashing the incredible power of Phainon and exploring the ultimate strategies to build him for victory. Whether you're a battle-hardened veteran or just embarking on your journey, this complete guide is your key to mastering Phainon and assembling his perfect teams. So, embrace your destiny, seize your core flame, and let's dive into the action. Phainon brings us a whole bunch of new, unique mechanics to the game that we will go over, but first we need to understand which stats he needs to prioritize, that being attack along with both crit rate and crit damage. Now, before we go over his skill, we first need to understand his ultimate. Phainon has a unique ultimate gauge. You are able to activate his ultimate by acquiring 12 stacks of core flame. Once you do activate his ultimate, Phainon deploys a new mechanic known as a territory, which causes all other teammates to not take action, so that Phainon is a one-man army. But before we go over what exactly he is capable of doing in his transformed state, we first need to know how exactly he gains the core flames. Phainon has two different options. The first and easiest option is through his skill, Let There Be Light. Phainon not only does damage to multiple enemies, but also gains 2 stacks of core flame. Secondly, through his talent, Pyrrhic Corpus. If an ally of Phainon's targets him for an ability, not only does Phainon gain a stack of core flame, but will be granted an additional 30% critical damage boost for 3 turns, on top of all the buffs that are given to him by the ally. Additionally, from his A2, once Phainon enters battle, he is able to gain 1 stack of core flame, and once his transformation ends, he gains 3 stacks. Finally, you are able to stack 3 additional stacks of core flame, much like Acheron, and once you exit your enhanced state, Phainon will start with those 3 stacks instead of 0. Oh, but wait, we still have one more way. Whenever he receives an energy regeneration ability effect, instead of gaining energy, Phainon will gain 1 stack of core flame. So, as you can see, Phainon has many different ways to obtain core flame so that he is able to enter his transformed state as much as possible. But now, let's talk about that transformed state. Once you do get those 12 stacks of core flame, Phainon is able to activate his ultimate. He will transform and activate his territory. A new mechanic, as previously mentioned, will cause all other allies to take a back seat while Phainon begins his destruction. While in this state, all enemies will gain a physical weakness debuff. Additionally, while he is in this state, he will not have actions, but instead 8 turns, which always includes the one he takes after ulting. These turns will have a fixed speed of 60% base speed. Once Phainon reaches his final action, he will launch his final hit automatically, dealing massive amounts of damage that is distributed to all enemies. But before that final hit, what exactly is Phainon capable of? As Phainon enters into that ultimate state, not only does he become a brand new entity, gains enhanced basic and skills, a new talent, and a new charge called Scourge, which will be gained from his enhanced abilities, which cap at 7 stacks. Upon his transformation, he gains 4 stacks, immune to CC, increases his own attack by 80%, and increases his max HP by 27%. To help fit the one-man army idea, Phainon will recover 20% of his max HP every time he attacks. If you ever find yourself in a position where Phainon in his transformed state would be defeated, worry not, because whenever he would take a final blow, instead he will restore 25% of his max HP and launch his final attack, and for every 1 additional turn you are not able to complete, his final hit damage multiplier is increased by 12.5%. Now, looking at his 3 enhanced attacks, his basic gives Phainon 2 stacks of Scourge, while dealing physical damage to a single target and splash damage to adjacent enemies. The first enhanced skill is Calamity Soul Scourge Edict. Phainon will gain stacks of Scourge equal to the amount of enemies currently on the field upon the skill's activation, and 1 of Soul Scorch, then makes all enemies take action. Once in the Soul Scorch state, he will reduce damage by 75% and gain stack of Soul Scorch for every enemy attack or action they take, and immediately launches a counter after the enemy takes action, dealing damage to all enemies. Now, for the final enhanced skill, Phainon will dispel all debuffs from himself, then deal 1170% of his attack. And for every Scourge consumed, deal 4 additional instances of damage, dealing 45% of his attack to a random enemy. If you manage to consume 4 stacks of Scourge on activation, you will deal an additional 450% of his attack, and this damage is evenly distributed to all enemies. Already a lot of information, and you can see that Phainon is going to be a step above the competition. But before we look at his builds and team comps, we need to look at his Eidolons. E1 grants Phainon in his enhanced state a massive speed boost. It boosts the base speed from 60% to 66%. Then for every enemy you defeat, further boosts the speed by 0.5%, maxing out at 84%, while also increasing his ultimate critical damage by 50%, lasting for 3 turns. E2 allows Phainon's transformed state an increased 20% resistance penetration, and when you consume 4 Scourge to use the second enhanced skill, you will gain 1 turn. E4 will allow Phainon's transformed state to gain 4 stacks of Scourge when using his first enhanced skill. And finally, E6, the previous limit of the Core Flame Overflow number of 3 is thrown out the window, and instead you will have no limit. And when the battle starts, Phainon will now start with 6 stacks of Core Flame. Finally, after using your first enhanced skill, you will deal an additional 36% of true damage based on the total damage in the attack to the enemy with the highest HP. Now, looking towards his relics, Phainon wants to use the new Wave Strider Captain set, as not only does it boost critical damage by 16%, but whenever an ally takes action and uses a ability onto the target wearing this set, you gain 1 stack of help, maxing at 2. And when the wearer uses their ultimate, it's going to consume the stacks and boost your attack by 48%. To a lesser degree, the Scholar Lost in Erudition set will work, as it does similar boosts to the Wave Strider set, but not as high of a boost. For ornament sets, Arcadia is by far the best set, as it will boost his damage based on the number of allies missing in battle for the wearer's Metmo Sprite and the wearer. Additionally, other sets like Rudolent Arena and Bone Collection work, but you should be focusing on the Arcadia set. You can see huge damage numbers in the transformed state. Looking at light cones, for myself, I don't really recommend the signature light cone all the time. However, for this absolute monster, I do recommend it. It grants the wearer a base speed boost of 12, and importantly, part here is that for the base speed boost, when he does enter into the enhanced state because of the percentage boost to his own speed for turn count. Also allowed the wearer to ignore 18% of the enemy's defense, and when the ultimate is used, you obtain Blazing Sun, which increases the damage dealt by 60% while in possession. Looking at team options, we need to remember that Phainon wants teammates that target him for buffs or increasing his actions, so the likes of Sunday and Bronya, and even Ting Liu to a lesser degree, are all great options. But having both Bronya and Sunday on the team are really going to bring out the best in Phainon, as he wants to get great buffs, which not only add to the Core Flame buffs to himself, but allowing the use of his skill again, getting stacks of more Core Flame. Getting into his transformed state is the end goal of this character for good reason, because it is busted. So for the best team, these two currently are best in slot. The third option depends on the player. Since Phainon will be receiving massive buffs from these other 2 units, having a final DPS character could work. Or you can run a final option of either Ting Yun or Hua Hua. Both of these characters have their own uses. Ting Yun increases Phainon's damage, and the added bonus of gaining Core Flame from the energy regen abilities is a plus. Hua Hua similarly fits the similar mold as Ting Yun, while also providing a sustainability option for other characters on the team, but I will make a separate video talking about Phainon's team options because they are vast. Ultimately, Phainon has a lot in his kit and will take some time to get used to with all the abilities and rotations, so when he does come out, over time, being able to play him, I will try and figure everything out for optimization. Saying that though, Phainon is beyond stupidly strong. He is strong in the base state. Once he transforms, the shackles come off, and a new monster is unleashed. It is common practice to say that a character is really good. It's similar to like saying, oh yeah, he's just the weaker version of the boss. But Phainon, you are literally playing as a boss character he's meant to be. It will be interesting to see how much better he gets with his eventual best support coming out in the future. Whoever that is, we don't know. But at the moment, Phainon is sure to shake up teams and the structure of the game, as I'm sure Hoyoverse will add additional difficulties and shadow buffs to enemies down the line because of him.